Hey guys, today I want to answer a really common question we get here at Paperpot Co, and that is, how big should my farm be before I consider investing in a Paperpot transplanter and system? Well, I think that question you can look at it in a couple different ways. Perhaps how big your farm isn't the best question. It might be more how expensive is your labor and how much do you want to save from that labor. So let's take my farm for example. Green City Acres is a small farm. It's a 1/4 acre, 46 50-foot beds in production. We plant about 2 beds of Salanova every single week from May till end of August, early September. And that saves us about 80 minutes of labor every week. So it's quite significant when you stack up all those weeks. For us on our farm, because it's mostly run by one guy, that's Mark, and then I'm on the farm every now and then, but he for the most part runs the farm. He needs to be doing many different things at once. So if he is spending 2 hours bending over transplanting beds of lettuce every single week, that's time that he could be spent in other places that might be more productive, or tasks that could be done that are more valuable. But planting is an extremely valuable task, but so is delivering and packing product at a reasonable time, opposed to letting the tasks stack up and then you're late to deliveries and you're delivering during rush hour and things like this. So for us, it's worth it, but I pay Mark $20 an hour. So it's very worth it for me as the owner of the company to save on that labor as well. So I think you should really think about it in that way. And another factor to consider is, do you have room for the tool? I mean, the tool itself takes up quite a bit of space, and all the components to it take up space as well. So really tiny farms might not actually need a Paperpot transplanter at all. I think because my farm is really focused on being lean, and we don't want to work more than 40 hours a week, the Paperpot system works very well for our context. But my farm is probably the smallest farm I would recommend needing a Paperpot transplanter for. If your labor's cheap and you want to have people working, then there's nothing wrong with hand transplanting. One thing I will say too is, actually, I'm very glad that for many years on my farm we were hand transplanting Salanova lettuce with landscape fabrics, because that allowed me to burn off a lot of weeds early on, so that now when we're running the system, our beds are more or less weed free, or no beds are weed free, but they're very free of weeds for the most part, which is awesome. I would say, if you're running a market garden and you're transplanting 4 to 8 or more beds a week, the Paperpot is going to save you a ton of time, especially if you're paying people premium wages. If your wages are cheap and you're around that scale, it might not be worth it. There's also quite a bit of getting used to with the Paperpot. The system requires a lot of feel, and you don't learn that right away. It's not as easy as teaching somebody how to run a Jang seeder. Jang seeder right behind the wall here. So it's very nuanced. And so what usually is happening is, on a farm, when they're getting to use the Paperpot, it's the boss or the person who spent the money is going to use it for the first little while, get used to using it, and then train other people to do it. So there's also an investment in time that you have to consider when you're getting to use it as well. But I mean, once you have it set up, it is a huge time saver. I mean, let's not forget the time saved in the nursery as well with the drop seeder. The fact that I can plant a flat of Salanova in seconds, opposed to maybe 5 minutes doing it by hand, is quite significant as well. And so all these times stack up in the year. So it's important to ask whether it's worth it or not, but your own context is probably going to answer that question better for you. Like, is your labor expensive Do you want to have those people freed up so that they can do other tasks? Do you have storage room for the tool? Because you've got to have a good place to store it. And then, you know, from there, I mean, it really is a tool that is going to save a lot of market gardeners a ton of time. And so for me, I mean, one of the best things about the tool is the fact that it gives me the options to operate within favorable weather than non-favorable weather. So on days that it's raining a lot and you got a ton of transplants to go in the ground, and you have a short window of good weather, you can go and do probably most of your transplanting in that weather. Whereas if you've got 10,000 plugs to go on the ground and it's rainy, you might as well just get started in the morning because you're going to be there all day. So I like that time optionality that the Paperpot Transplanter gives me. And you know, it really comes down to, what do you value? How much do you value your time? And I value my time extremely high in the hierarchy of needs. So to me, these kinds of things are reasonable investments. You know, there's things that you can really compromise on investing. Instead of buying a new vehicle, you can buy a used vehicle. And there's some tools you can buy used too. You can buy a used BCS. You don't have to buy a new BCS. Hey, if you can find a used Paperpot Transplanter, buy a used Paperpot. But it's a tool that there's not a lot of other options for to save you the time, especially on the small scale. You know, with large farms, transplanters that are tractor mounted are a huge investment. But of course, they're saving those farms hundreds or thousands of hours of labor a year. So on a small farm, there aren't a lot of options that can do what the Paperpot Transplanter does. So it's really about weighing your options and deciding how valuable your time is. All right, guys, I hope you have found that helpful. Please leave more questions and comments below as they continue to give us great ideas to make more videos that are answering these questions. All right, guys, talk to you later.